So welcome to Transform Gov, where we share real life stories of how data and technology are changing public services and how we actually access them. So in every episode, we go straight to the source, that is the leaders making the calls and the teams doing the work. Transform Gov is part of the Ireland e-Government Awards, and it's brought to you in partnership with Accenture, and I'm Maeve Kneafsey. So today on Transform Gov, we're joined by Malcolm Byrne TD, who is chair for the Oireachtas Committee on AI. Malcolm, you're very welcome to Transform Gov.
Thanks very much, Maeve.
Well, look, I suppose let's step back a second before we start getting into the nitty-gritties. So what actually has changed, do you believe, in AI that, maybe in the last 12 to 18 months that's really going to impact perhaps on our public service, or what they should be even thinking about and understanding?
So artificial intelligence is an incredibly transformative technology, but we should always view technology as an enabling tool and not the goal in and of itself. And our approach should always be, can I use this technology to improve the delivery of public services? And I think we have seen a step change on the part of government at both a political level, but also in terms of a civil and public service level. So if we step back into the life of the last government prior to the November 2024 general election, we saw at that time the appointment of the AI ambassador, Patricia Scanlon, a great ambassador, and the appointment of an independent AI advisory council by government. What was quite interesting about that was, there were up to 400 applications from people from business, academia, a variety of public service backgrounds, the technology sector. And that advisory council was independent, but to offer advice to government around the challenges and the opportunities of this new technology. And then at the same time, at European level, we saw moves toward the development of the AI Act.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this was against the background of, or the backdrop of when in November 2022, for instance, OpenAI dropped ChatGPT onto all of our phones. and suddenly people became very curious. And we started to see, a lot more discussion around AI, but increasingly AI, which has been around for a long time, but people now starting to look at practical applications around generative AI and so on. So fast forward, new government formed at the beginning of 2025. And if you put the current program for government into a large language model and compare it with the program for government of the last government, you'll see there's a lot more emphasis on AI and digitalization and investment in technology. So even looking at, the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform, digitalization is now included within its title. We saw for the first time the appointment of a Minister for State for Artificial Intelligence, Maeve Smith. And then there was the decision at Oireachtas level to set up the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Artificial Intelligence, which I had the honour to chair. I think we've also seen the publication of guidelines for responsible use of AI in the public service, which were more than just, general guidelines. I think it did mark a bit of a change in thinking in the public service from where, over a year ago, where I would have been putting parliamentary questions into government departments, and there was almost a hands-off approach to exploring how we would use AI, to now, we have use cases, let's trial things, let's experiment.
Do you think there's been a major shift in terms of people's mindset, do you think, or is it still very slow?
I think so. And you can see it. I mean, you can see in a lot of government departments and agencies, the trialing of the use of AI in different ways with a view to improving public services. And we've been fortunate at the Oireachtas Committee on AI. We've had different government departments and agencies in talking to us about, how they're exploring using AI. So, for instance, for translation services, we're quite impressed with the court service, for instance, where, quite often trials or even civil cases have had to be delayed because you're waiting for a translator for a witness or a defendant where English may not be their first language. And now, rather than having to wait for a translator, you can use an AI platform that will translate. We're also seeing in the court service, for instance, where the role of the stenographer is slowly being replaced, the transcription being done by AI. The Department of Agriculture, very innovative. It processes a lot of
these. I mean, I know all our listeners want to hear these because it's quite difficult to know what's going on. And I suppose you're in a unique position because people are telling you what they're doing. And it's not that people are secretive, it's just that they're busy doing their business.
Yeah.
So what are the Department of Agriculture doing?
And I think so the department are, it processes a lot of grant data. So it's using it about how to manage that data. And it's not just, there are quite a number of other departments and agencies, and all these use cases fascinate me. The National Library, who are using it for the translation of old manuscripts and documents. Now, at all times, there's a human in the loop, of course, which is critical. But you're seeing people experiment, and I think our challenge, and as an Oireachtas Committee, but I think as governments and public service generally, is it's about how we strike the right balance between encouraging innovation, trialing out use cases to see how we can use this technology to deliver public services more efficiently and effectively, while at the same time ensuring that we maintain trust and have the necessary guardrails and safeguards in place.
And that balance is really hard to reach, I suppose. But when you've got guidelines, it helps. But do you think we're moving fast enough anyway?
Generally speaking, no, is the answer. I think I often make the point that there's any new technology that comes along, and this applies whether it's the state or policymakers or even our education system, there's often three approaches. There's the ban this thing will be the greatest threat we're ever going to face.
Yeah.
There's merit in this, but let's maybe sit back and see how others use it first before we adapt. Or there's what I think is the correct approach. We say, this technology is here. It's already changing lives. People are using it. Let's embrace it, get ahead of the curve, and look at the ways that we can use it safely. And that, I believe, is the correct approach to take. I did tell that story, and a senior public servant was speaking after me on a panel who reminded me that, Malcolm, there's always the fourth approach, which is to set up a review group.
And nothing will happen.
And
we'll delay it.
And we don't have time, to be honest.
And when you say we don't have time, why don't we have time? What will happen if we don't move?
Well, the technology is moving so quickly. And if you look at, I mentioned, when ChatGPT was launched in November 2022, and if you look at, the models that have been developed, even in that short period of time, they're far more advanced and far more detailed. And you look at what the technology can do and is doing in, the healthcare space and so on. It's truly transformative. So we've got to embrace that technology and start to inform ourselves and play around with it. And, for Ireland, where we like to think of ourselves as a leader in this space, we're not. There are other countries where, we're seeing, Italy and Greece, in terms of, some of their policy formulation and their parliamentary processes are moving ahead. They're embracing the technology. Countries that maybe historically wouldn't have seen as
Estonia's always top
first
of the list. Yeah.
Estonia is. When and we might be able to talk about what Estonia is doing, within its education system, where it's making a closed loop large language model available to all of its senior cycle students, and really having a debate in society around where we roll out AI and the guardrails that need to be in place, but more importantly, but how all of its citizens can use it and can be innovative, and how it can deliver, better public services using it. So I think all is not lost. I think certainly the fact that the government has now set up the National AI Office. The recruitment process is currently on for the first chief executive.
What is that office supposed to do, just so we understand?
So I suppose my hope, and I think the government's hope, is not that it will be another layer of regulation or bureaucracy. It can't be a thou shalt not regulator. Its role has to be, in ensuring, obviously, the EU AI Act is followed, but it should be a facilitative office. So it should be supporting existing regulators in their work in this space, but also being able to advise and support, for instance, an SME that wants to use or embed AI processes to deliver goods or services better to its customers, to make sure that business stays within the guardrails or is able to avail of opportunities to benefit from the new technologies. I think what is important is that our existing regulators, that they're sufficiently upskilled and ready for. So if a financial services product, for instance, is coming before the central bank, that the central bank is as attuned to its regular role in financial services product. But if it's an AI-enabled product, that it knows, okay, this is an AI-enabled product.
That's how we deal with it.
Here's how we deal with it.
So in other words, what would be bad, and which I think you're saying is not going to happen, is that, let's say you're going to the financial regulator, you don't then have to go to another AI regulator, that the AI will be informing the financial regulator, not looking for another layer.
No, the ultimate question is about how do we more effectively and efficiently deliver services to the public? And yes, we need the regulatory safeguards in place, but we've one regulator in each in each area. We've just got to make sure that they're equipped and skilled to be able to address it. As a society more generally, we've all got to inform ourselves around the AI and other technologies and how they're transforming our lives. And I think one of the healthiest things that we can start to have to happen is in our workplaces, in our schools, in our universities, in our training centres, we start to have debates around what is AI, how do we use AI responsibly, how can we support innovative ideas that will better serve the public.
I'm going to have to break just for 1 second, because it's important people that we have to give space to give us their message, and that's our partner Accenture. So don't go away, we'll be back in 2 minutes.
Through the power of cloud, data and AI, Accenture is helping the public sector by blending human ingenuity, technology and a delivery-focused culture to turn their ambitions into action. Be ready for any challenge by adopting a continuous reinvention mindset to deliver human-centric services that adapt and grow with your needs. Contact the team at Accenture to find out more.
So we're back. So I'm just going to ask Malcolm, we were talking about the debate being an important part of actually embracing AI. So I suppose there's a tendency sometimes for some people to just park it over in the corner and I'm not going to talk about it or what it's going to do, and frightened of it. And then there's immediate embracers like me or younger people who don't even think about it. But you think the debate has to go on if we're going to make informed decisions about where it fits, how it doesn't fit, is that correct?
Yeah. So, I mean, this is a technology that is transforming virtually every aspect of society and the economy. So it's transport, education, healthcare, agriculture, fisheries. There is potential from this remarkable technology to be really transformative. We know that it is going to be incredibly disruptive, to the jobs market. There are jobs that are going to be displaced as a result of the use of AI. Equally, though, there are going to be more jobs in the long term created. All the evidence that's coming from the World Economic Forum and others is there will be more jobs that will be created. But the difficulty is this is going to happen over a very quick period of time. Most other big transitions, there's a long period and so on. Forget about it. Technology is moving now at such a pace. As a state and as public servants, we have to be ready for some of that. We're not going to be able to legislate for every eventuality, but what we certainly can do is have debates around the principles around where and when AI should be used. What are the objectives? How can we use this technology to ensure, that resources are more targeted and the public get a better service? And then there is a requirement under the EU AI Act for anyone who is using AI to, be informed about it and also to inform customers or clients where it is being used. But that's why I think we need to all upskill and reskill in this space. So I'm very excited. My friend and colleague, the Minister for Further and Higher Education, James Lawless, is talking about, up to 1 million citizens in a very short period of time having access to micro-credentialed courses ranging from everything that is, what is artificial intelligence to I operate an SME, how can I use to be able to improve my business processes while doing it in a safe way? And I think we need to be encouraging, people to do that. Within our education system, I don't think we're moving quickly enough. Students and researchers are using AI already. And I think we've got to encourage it, because this is going to be part of our lives into the future. But discussions around its ethical use. When do we use AI in research? How do we use it in assessment, and so on? And I think the more of that debate that happens, because nobody can predict, where this is going to go.
Yeah.
If somebody describes themselves as an AI expert, and they're going to be able to tell us where we would
yesterday?
be in 2 years' time.
Yeah.
We don't know, but what we can see is the transformative power.
Is there? I understand the use of AI within education, but what jobs are going to be the new jobs, and how do we then create the training or the education around that? Is that something that you've looked at or are looking at?
Yeah, so I think what we're going to start to see is a lot of what you might call a lot of mundane activity. So, data inputting jobs and stuff like that, they're all going to disappear. And I would certainly see within the public service, other roles of gathering data and so on. That will all now be managed by new technologies, which should free up more time for people to be able to make decisions based on the data that's there. I think one of the most exciting projects that the state is undertaking at the moment, and it's not really talked about in a big way, even though it'll probably cost us several hundred million euro, is the digitalization of our health services. Long overdue. But I want to see us get to a situation whereby not alone are our health records easily transferable. Like, it should be very easy. If somebody ends up in a hospital, it should be just press a button and access to GP records, and everything else should be available. But I'd love to see a situation whereby using all of our data in an anonymized form, because our data has to be protected, but use all of that anonymized data to be able to inform clinical research. I'm pretty certain, nearly every citizen, if they knew their data was going to be anonymized, but to help in terms of clinical health research to be able to achieve better outcomes, people would sign up to it. And I think we need to have those kind of debates within society, because if you think, that if you could have access to all of that clinical data, how much better we'd be in being able to tackle disease and illness, in being able to develop drugs, to be able to tackle some of the problems, to target resources.
Well, exactly. Just knowing what the demand is going to be, and where there's going to be we all talk about diabetes, but there's other things that are coming down the track too. And mental health, I presume, would be a really important one as well.
Exactly. And medics work on the basis of data. And the point when you're talking about, the best human surgeon in the world, how he or she becomes the best human surgeon is, they've read lots about it, they've carried out lots of surgery in their area of specialization. But imagine that they have a tool alongside that can draw, all the evidence from all of the surgeries that have taken place within that field. And the point that I often make to people is, it's not going to be about robots replacing those surgeons, but doctors who use artificial intelligence will replace doctors who don't. Yeah. And similarly, public servants who use artificial intelligence will replace public servants who don't.
Yeah, yeah. Let's bring it back to practical levels, right? And this is really interesting. But you talked to me earlier when we were getting ready for the podcast about revenue. And I think you're also talking about fish counts. What's going on in those spaces? What are we seeing going on in the public service already?
Yeah, I think, to your point, Maeve, around people don't often know. When the guidelines on the responsible use of AI in the public service were published, I think the most interesting thing is people started talking about their use cases. And so I mentioned some of those. On the fish counts, I found it quite interesting that the Cross-Border Locks Agency, probably not a public service agency that gets a lot of headlines.
Talk about them every day.
No, but again, it's using AI in terms of measuring fish counts. Revenue, where in terms of internally, it's not quite customer facing yet, but there's about 1,000 tax codes. Revenue have outlined about how they're using AI to be able to interrogate some of the tax codes, to be able to get answers. The passport officer, are experimenting with it. And I think, once the safeguards are there, it's important to trial and experiment there and have proof of concept. Yeah. The critical thing is it's not about, the goal being, we have to use AI. It's around
what's it going to deliver.
It's a tool, and what can it deliver? And we are seeing those use cases where it is delivering better public services. And if that means that for you or me or for any of your listeners as citizens, that we know that we can get a better, quicker and more efficient response, and that the state's resources are better targeted, that makes a lot of sense.
And I suppose the conversation has been with quite, look, we first started talking about AI in this podcast, which is not that long ago. It was, we'll just try, we'll try this. Very nervous. Then it came, no, we're definitely doing pilots. But is there a gap between getting a pilot into actual deployment? Is that being a problem, and have they overcome it?
I think, learn from other, other departments. But I've certainly noticed, in responses to parliamentary questions and hearing departments, there is that shift now about the realisation. Look, it's no different to any new technology.
Yeah.
When somebody tries something new for the first time, there's a natural nervousness. We are all slightly, and particularly in the public service, conservative around, okay, we know the way we've always done things. But I think once the necessary guardrails are in place, that that there's a human in the loop, that the necessary protections are there, and particularly then if we want to sandbox and trial kind of new ideas, try it out, proof of concept. I mean, I the court service, really good examples where, they've been trialing it with transcription, of the stenographers, or with translation, where it gets to a level that, this is as good as, humans, or in some cases it's getting better. So, is it speeding up the, the doing of that work? Yeah. So, after a case, if a judge wanted to review the transcript, if they could get it immediately after the case, that obviously speeds things up in terms of being able to assess it. So it's about, the proof of concept. Let's trial it, see if it works. If it works, let's roll it out. But we've got to have a positive attitude to embracing this, because other countries are doing it, and we shouldn't just do it because others are doing it. But this is a country that prides itself on innovation, on being a leader when it comes to deploying technology to deliver better results. And in order to do that, we need to have an informed workforce to be able to roll it out, but also with a bit of innovation, a willingness to take within the necessary guardrails, a willingness to take risks to see if something works, and if it does, let's go with it. I
suppose there's a unique role in Ireland in the sense that so many tech companies that are actually building AI have their HQs in Europe here. Is there a nervousness from them that maybe the EU regulation is going to kind of try and dumb down what they're doing? Can Ireland play a role in trying to break that?
I mean, I don't think so. Like, Ireland is always going to be a bridge, particularly between the United States and Europe. I mean, I don't, and I've been to the US, and I've kind of met some of my political, my political equivalents in terms of the House AI Committee, and hearing from, the US Chamber of Commerce and people like that. And I think their fear is more what we talked about earlier, that there will be another layer of bureaucracy put in place. So if you think in the US, like the US is not is into, has regulation. I mean, this idea that regulation and innovation are mutually exclusive is a nonsense. They have to work together. You've got to strike the balance right. But in the US, if you're rolling out a food or drug product, you have to get approval from the FDA. You have to go in and show this is how we've developed the product, which is not easy. This is how we developed the product. These are the safety measures in place, and so on. And you get FDA approval. The only difference that's happening now is you could be using AI in the development of the of the food or drug product, and the FDA is going to go, okay, now I need to understand your processes and that you have the guardrails in place before you roll that product out. It's very similar to what we have in Europe. I think the fear from the US side is we have that, food and drug kind of regulating role, that there's going to be another layer of, we have to have this AI layer of regulation. And it's not. What we've got to do is, continue for customer and citizen safety, have those very strong but well-informed regulators looking at it, not introducing additional layers of regulation. We have to have, the right level of regulation. We should also, have it as, and this is why the EU simplification agenda is important. Part of our Europe's competitiveness agenda is especially for small businesses and organizations. We shouldn't make it too complicated.
Yeah.
It should be pretty clear. And, at the end of it all, a very simple process in which people have confidence. And I think in terms of the AI Act, there's risk levels. We just need to embed it in people's heads around, the important things about safety and risk and managing it. In the same way, I suppose, as if you think about data protection. And, when GDPR first came in and a lot of people were thinking, oh, this is going to be a nightmare and blah, blah. GDPR is actually quite simple. Data protection is, I can only use your data for the express purposes that you've given me permission to do it. And if we establish the same rules around AI, we're going to be able to roll out a lot of really innovative and creative products more efficiently to our citizens.
I suppose in the way GDPR, we had to have literacy within the public sector to understand what the requirement was. And then once you knew, you could say, actually, it's not that complicated.
And it's the exact same.
Is there a way we're doing that? Are we thinking about that for our public service?
I think certainly you're seeing it. It's probably, in my view, and I'm subject to be corrected on this, but I don't think it's uniform across, the public sector. You're certainly seeing some departments and agencies being much more proactive about informing their staff, trialing, how AI can be used, having those debates, and I've mentioned some of those who are really progressive in the space. Others are perhaps a little bit cautious. And I suppose the challenge that I would set out there, and this is part of the challenge of government, is, this is happening. This change is going on. You've got to start the debate. You've got to upskill and reskill staff. And you've got to start to explore how can we use this new technology in a responsible and safe way. But let's try it out. Will this result in the delivery of better services? And there's really exciting possibilities.
I know you mentioned agentic AI. So, what do you see? There's great possibilities there, isn't there, in terms of for public sector services?
Yes. So, as of now, and I put the question across all government departments, there's no government department or agency using agentic AI. And
maybe just explain briefly.
So, which I was going to do. So the idea here is essentially based on, a lot of different data points. So a lot of queries. So the classic example is on something like procurement.
Yes. The big P.
The big P. And, you often have quite a number of different elements coming into that. So obviously you want to get the good price, value for money, but you need to also ensure, that a company will comply with a whole series of rules. You've also got to ensure that the company has a reasonably good record about being able to deliver. And so in that regard, there may be other factors that you want to build in terms of the specific requirement in a certain area. So it could be that, there has to be an extra element of consultation with particular groups and so on before you proceed to different levels. So essentially what you do is you get all of those data points and to the AI, to keep it simple, you kind of make that as your agents to go off and based on all that, effectively kind of carry out the negotiations. It's like an agent acting on your behalf. There are lots of safety concerns around that. So a lot of that debate still has to happen. But I could certainly see a situation in the not too distant future where you could see that kind of engagement happening either, in a government department engaging in, with contracts, or potentially somebody, for instance, engaging with revenue commissioners. And I've put this at the committee in the payment of your taxes. So, being able to interrogate and move through all that. And the benefit of it is if it works well, that it can be done much more efficiently. Because as you know, one of the big complaints about government procurement is how long it takes. That doesn't necessarily get the best value for the taxpayer. So, I could certainly see moving in that space. But we're already moving, in that direction. Now, I totally get, before anyone is shouting, oh, but the safeguards, yes, we have to put them in place.
The human overseer will always be there.
The human oversight will always need to be there. But this debate, is already going on. And that's why it's important to have people informed in this space. And I'm quite confident. I mean, we're starting to see moves very quickly. I think once the AI office is up and running, whoever the new chief executive is, he or she will have an important role in that regard. Ireland will be hosting an AI summit on the 14th of October as part of our presidency of the European Council. And, those sort of public discussions, and I also believe, by the way, we need public information campaigns. This is a debate that we need everybody to be involved in. I always thought, people of a particular vintage, including myself, will remember the famous, I don't know what a tracker mortgage is.
Yeah.
For people to understand financial products.
Yes.
We nearly need to be doing the same. I don't know what an algorithm is.
Yes.
And it shouldn't be for people, to hold up their hand.
Big gap between those who don't know. Yeah.
And hold your breath. Like, I don't know everything about it. I mean, I'm learning as much as anybody else. I think it's the one great thing, because it's a cross-party committee, the Oireachtas Committee on Artificial Intelligence, that we are working in a collaborative way, because we all admit we're learning. There are things at every session we don't know,
because it keeps changing anyway.
Yeah.
So it's a constant. I mean, we are having our summit on the 24th September, so please come, because these are part of the debates. We'll definitely be talking about AI within the public sector. And last year we did something similar, but it's moved on so much we could not do it again this year. And I think that's the thing. And we have to talk about it and find out what other people are doing. But Malcolm, thank you very much for coming in and talking to us, because you've made something far more clear and far more practical than I was thinking before we had this conversation. So that's brilliant. And of course, it's now about how decisions are being made, and having concepts of how we can make those services better by using the tools that are at our fingertips, right? But thank you very much, and hopefully we have more of this conversation.
No, thank you. And the Oireachtas Committee on Artificial Intelligence, we're always open to ideas, or if people think, hey, this is something you should be looking at, ai@oireachtas.ie is the email. So we always welcome any suggestions. But thanks very much for the conversation.
Well, good. I think we'll definitely have some people at that email address soon, because our audience are very interested in this subject. But also thank you to our team here. So that's the studio here is studio manager Peter Rice, video editor Neil Horner, sound engineer Lee Brennan, and videographer Richie Ryan. So thank you all for listening, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Transform Gov.